It's been years, so many years, since those days. I'm sorry to speak in such riddles, or to talk in this tone of discomfort. But there are things I've seen and heard, many I try to ignore, but some I can't even come to grief with. We're all told that ghosts don't exist, that the dark sounds in the night are merely just that, sounds. We're all told of loving angels, but what of he? What is he? It was back in 1978, December 12th, only 37 years ago, but still I remember his static face. I still recall that first glance, back at the abandoned field, over the unmarked grave on the old hill. His was pale but shadowy in figure, his body gave off vapors in the chill, making him look warmer than the air. I never made eye contact, for it scared me more than just watching him from afar. I knew no one would believe me, who in their right mind would believe me? I was supposed to get back home, yet his disposition was coming. I refer to it as being a male, when in fact it was unknown to me in what this even was. I just stood there staring at him, from behind the low-lying wooden fence, separating the road from the old field. He didn't seem to breathe or move an inch, the air became colder as I watched aimlessly. As the wind picked up, I noticed that the ground beneath him was frozen over, and a small yet dead rose was frozen in a lively manner. I knew I should have ran, I should have left, I should have took my butt home, but I couldn't move. As I felt suspended in time, I watched as his left arm extended from his darkened cloak. It appeared bloody and charred to some degree. As the sun started to set, I noticed in his shadow what appeared to be wings. Were this his wing? As the light casted off his shadow along the landscape. Was this an angel? Was all I could manage to comprehend, as I watched the blood drip to the ground only to melt the now snow-like ground around him. His blood was black, and dissipated like smoke, leaving a burning scent in the fresh winter breeze. What angel bleeds black? I started to speak aloud as he vanished. The sun was setting and he was gone. So I took myself home. That night was different. I dreamed of falling, more like plummeting as my nightgown became swamped, like a soaked heavy blanket. I needed to wake up, but the weight was too much, as a hand reached out only to take mine at theirs as the darkness became a raging fire, burning all around me as my dress kept me cool. I awoke in a cold sweat, breathing erratically, my heart racing yet claiming, I have to return to the old hill, and find this man, and so I did. But this time was different. I creeped up the street only to see the shadowy man sitting by the grave, back turned towards the street. I watched as he pulled off his cloak, and stretched his wings. They were not that of any angel you would read about. They appeared drenched in crimson, scared and burned. There were even parts burned straight to the bone. My God, what is he? Were my first thoughts, but I just watched. As he started to weep, it sounded like music, as if a song was playing. Arose the whines, projected from him. As I moved closer, the wind picked up, and the air grew colder. Did he notice me? I stood motionless as his right arm struck the ground, killing the nearby tree I once called shelter. But just as quick as he struck it, it blossomed again. I was sure of it, he was an angel, but in my haste of observers the tree he had vanished once again. That night was the same as the first. I was falling but felt more weighed down. The hand reached out, but this time started to ice over mines. I struggled and pulled, but it would let go. As the fire blazed around us, I watched the arm catch fire as it shielded mine. I shortly woke up in a bitter frost. My body was shaking, arms limp, and breathing was near impossible. What's happening to me? I must check back on him and learn more. And so I did. This time was different. The clouds had darkened and the sky was dim, with a slight drizzle of rain, steady but light. I walked up to the old hill only to see the grave. As I approached, I felt a warm breeze. I kneeled down. The ground was cold, deprived of water. As I stood up, a cold sense fell over me. He was behind me. I was scared but comforted. A light shade covered my head as an umbrella was left atop me. As I grabbed it, turning around, whoever was there was gone. I walked back home deep in thought, thinking, what's with this all? As I didn't notice the headlights appear ahead of me. I screamed, closing my eyes, but nothing happened. No impact. No death. I opened my eyes to see what looked like a crashed 1970 Corvette in the nearby ditch. I walked over, clearing the rain from my eyes, only to see a ditch. I was losing it, but I had to come back tomorrow. It was late and I need more. I feel like I'm obsessive. Am I stalking? That night I didn't sleep at all. My mind was plagued and deluded, but the thoughts of another. Whose memories are these? I screamed as I gave up and gave into my heavenly slumber. It wasn't short after I awake in a dark lit room. I managed my way to the door, but my knob was gone. I wander my room aimlessly, looking for a light, but found nothing. Darn, power must be out, I thought as I laid back in bed. Thrusted back into my nightmare, I kept falling and I just didn't care. Whatever was at the bottom must be better than this. But the hands grabbed me forcefully, enough for me to wake up, staring into the eye of the very man I had been watching. His eyes were gray, yet one red ringed as the other was blue in its tone. His mouth was covered by a cloth-like mask. I wanted to scream but didn't. Why would I? Or should I? He sat there and spoke only slightly. Stay away. I soon after awoke. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. My heart was racing yet wasn't beating, it seemed. I was cold to the touch and twitching. But still I had to find him once again. I grabbed my coat and made my way outside. The wind was high, the snow was deep, but I pushed on. I made it to the old hill in recorded time, and approached the angel. I didn't care what he would do. I needed answers and I wanted them now. I walked behind him and stood there, gained my strength and went to speak, but no words came. Only his voice echoed. You just couldn't stay away, he chucked. As he rose from the ground. Do you know who lays here? He asked me as his hand pointed out towards the headstone. How could I answer? How would I know? He only laughed and walked away from me. I called out to him and he didn't stop. I called out again and he paused. Why are you doing this? I begged as I fell to my knees. He slowly walked up to me, lifting me in his arms, holding me gently. He only spoke slightly. I can't let you go, my dear. My eyes widened as he carried me up the street. I ceased my crying and looked into his eyes. It was him. But how? Like I said, that was 37 years ago. I've told others and asked many that I have ran across for new leads, since that day he carried me home. I've only come across 3 other accounts, where the dark-lit angel was found weeping over an unmarked grave. All separate years, all different seasons. All share only one thing in common, the death of a girl, who only wanted love, but was cut short by her own hands.